And we put out a statement a little while ago, and these people are going crazy. They won't report it properly. Shall I read you the statement? Donald J. Trump is calling for, now listen, you got to listen to this one because this is pretty heavy stuff, and it's common sense, and we have to do it. Remember the poll numbers, 25%, 51%. Remember the poll numbers. Okay, so remember this. So listen. Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice. We have no choice. According to Pew Research, among others, there is a great hatred toward Americans by large segments of the Muslim population.
You don't say America with an intensity.
She was such a threat, they held her in lockup for a simple trespassing citation, which is highly unusual for such a violation. Perhaps law enforcement feared that she would assassinate the Somali president? Perhaps. But this wouldn't be her first arrest, if she's arrested for treason, which I think is absolutely appropriate.
Most recently, a poll from Center for Security Policy released data showing 25% of those polled agreed that violence against Americans, these are people that are here, by the way, people here, 25, not 1%. By the way, 1% would be unacceptable. 1% is unacceptable. 25% of those polled agreed that violence against Americans here in the United States is justified as part, think of that, as part of the global jihad.
In the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up and, you know.
Yeah, he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, you know, Hezbollah.
He's an expert.
What's up, Patriots? American Joe. So this Islamic Center, this MAS, Muslim American Society Islamic Center in Philadelphia, they posted a video to their Facebook page on April 22nd of a bunch of children singing a song. And I want you to watch the video, and then we're going to talk about it.
شهداؤنا وهبوا الحياة رخيصة فازوا بجنات من الرضوان فاحت عطور المسك من أجسادهم يتسابقون لجنة الرحمن أو هل تكون القدس عاصمة لهم وتكون مرتع مرجم وجبان
سنذود بالأجساد عن أرض الهدى ونقدم الأرواح دون تواني وسنضرب الآناق عن أجسادهم ونحرر الأقصى الحزين العاري ونقود جيش الله منجز وعده ونسومهم سوء العذاب.
If you watch that video and you don't see that as a huge red flag, as a huge problem, then you're out of your mind.
You don't say America with an intensity. You don't say America with an intensity. You don't say America with an intensity. You don't say England with an intensity. You know, you don't say the army with an intensity.
They take our words out of context because they're afraid, because we speak truth. We speak truth to power.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
We are getting to the level where this is an incitement of violence against progressive women of color.
They do this all the time to us, especially women of color.
Republican and conservative groups, whether they are official party apparatuses, sending out emails, calling me and others domestic terrorists.
They take our words out of context because they're afraid, because we speak truth. We speak truth to power.
You don't say America with an intensity.
You tweeted, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. How do you put that into context now, and what do you say to American Jews?
What is really important to me is that people recognize that there is a difference between criticizing a military action by a government that has exercised really oppressive policies.
So what are we asking for? What we're asking for is very simple. We need to make sure that we cut and not put increases on spending on detention facilities. We need to stop using DHS as a slush fund. We need to abolish ICE and end all inhumane deportation and detention programs. We need to fight back against the criminalization of immigrants and those crossing the border. We need to create a fair and accessible path to legal status and citizenship for all undocumented people in the United States. And we need to pass a Clean Dream Act.
Are, quote, all about the Benjamins, she was roundly condemned, even by her own leadership, and later apologized, saying she understands the painful history of anti-Semitic tropes.
Can you resent your comments, Congresswoman?
I'm pretty sure that was stated in my statement.
GOP leaders were not satisfied, demanding she lose committee spots, even though they have been mostly silent about Trump's inflammatory racial rhetoric. Still, Trump went even further.
I think she should resign from Congress.
The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, who has been critical of Omar's words, would not say whether she should be removed from his panel.
I'm not commenting on anything.
At a hearing today on Venezuela, Omar engaged in a contentious exchange with Trump's special envoy, Elliot Abrams, who wanted a chance to respond to her criticism.
I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question. That was not a question. That was I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a question.
And Aaron, I had a chance to ask the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi if she agrees with the Republicans and that Omar should be removed from committee assignments. She said no, and she said the Republicans do not have clean hands on any of this. She cited chants at President Trump's rallies where they said USA in front of the president's face, and she said, and they didn't apologize for the remarks. And she also said, where were they over 13 years when Steve King, the Iowa Republican congressman, had made a series of racist comments until last year they decided to pull him from his committee assignments. They said, why didn't they do that?
American female members of Congress is apologizing for comments that many view as anti-Semitic. It was over one of her recent tweets and led to heavy criticism from both sides of the aisle. Nancy Cordes is at the Capitol.
Ilhan Omar's swearing in 1 month ago was hailed as a breakthrough. But today she found herself issuing another apology after suggesting over the weekend that AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobbying group, had bought the support of her colleagues.
It's a historic anti-Semitic trope about greed and money and would relate to Jews, and I think that's what set many of us off.
New Jersey's Josh Gottheimer and other Democrats circulated a letter this morning urging swift action to address what they called hateful speech. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi spoke with Omar and called her comments anti-Semitic and deeply offensive. The 37-year-old from Minnesota and Michigan's Rashida Tlaib are the first Muslim women in Congress. They both support the movement known as BDS, which calls for a boycott of Israel until property is returned to Palestinians.
Benjamin's baby caused an uproar last month, with the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi openly condemning it, that led Ilhan Omar to apologize for authoring it. The dust from that had far from settled when late last week, 3 things happened. First, a poster at the West Virginia State House linking Omar to the 9/11 terror attacks. It showed up in plain view at an event sponsored by that state's Republican Party. That poster led to a physical fight, an injury, and a resignation. The second event, last Friday, allegedly happened here at home in Rogers at a Holiday gas station. A man took a picture of this graffiti, a direct threat to Omar that he says he found in that gas station's restroom. The FBI told me tonight they're looking into it. Third and finally, a report with video showing Omar responding to a question at a public forum. The question was about Israel. Omar's response to that question was, quote, "I want to talk about the political influence in this country that says it is okay for people to push for allegiance to a foreign country," end quote. Outrage ensues. Why? Some Jewish leaders, like those at the Jewish Community Relations Council and with the Anti-Defamation League, say Omar's words continue a pattern of anti-Semitism. They claim her statement is the anti-Semitic allegation of dual loyalty. What's that mean? That Jews should be suspicious of being disloyal neighbors or citizens because their true allegiance is to others in their faith or to a secret Jewish agenda. Rip Omar fundamentally disagrees that her last statement is anti-Semitic. Omar is not backing down from this fight. I asked her spokesperson today via email on what exactly she meant when she said what she said at that event Friday night. He responded via email with this statement in Representative Omar's words, quote, "Being opposed to Netanyahu and the occupation is not the same as being anti-Semitic. I am grateful to the many Jewish allies who have spoken out and said the same." Omar continued to say as much over the weekend on Twitter when she wrote this, quote, "I am told every day that I am anti-American if I am not pro-Israel. I find that to be problematic and I am not alone. I just happen to be willing to speak up on it and open myself to attacks." Now, Representative Omar is almost certain to get more questions on this as she returns to Washington, D.C. this week, because the Washington Post and Politico are both reporting that the House of Representatives will vote, possibly on Wednesday, on a resolution condemning anti-Semitism.
They take our words out of context because they're afraid, because we speak truth. We speak truth to power.
Was rocked by civil war and subsequent famine. The U.S. sent troops there not to conquer land or steal resources, but purely to save lives. And we did that. We saved about 100,000 Somalis. That, by the way, was 1993, not 1992. I misremembered it. Seems like just yesterday. But Somali American Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is not grateful for what the U.S. did on behalf of the country she was born in. No, she thinks American troops were the bad guys in that conflict. A couple of years ago, she responded on Twitter to a user who was remembering the 19 American troops killed during the Battle of Mogadishu. She wrote this, quote, "In his selective memory, he forgets to also mention the thousands of Somalis killed by American forces that day, exclamation point. Hashtag not today, Satan." Sergeant Major Kyle Lamb fought that day in the Battle of Mogadishu. He's the author of the book Leadership in the Shadows, and we're happy to have him tonight. Thanks very much for coming on tonight.
Thanks for
Sergeant
having
Major
me.
Lamb. When you read Ilhan Omar's remarks about the battle that you fought in, what's your response?
Well, normally it's humorous, but at this point, it's kind of disturbing because, I mean, first of all, she wasn't there. She'd already left the country. We were there, and I've never heard numbers quite that inflated. I mean, we wished we could have done that much damage, but that didn't happen as far as I know.
Well, I guess what's so striking is, and the U.S. has done things I disagree with around the world, but in this case, it seemed like the mission was purely altruistic. We were only there to help. We didn't take Somalia. I mean, did you steal gold or natural resources when you were there?
No, we didn't do that. We were trying to take out Aidid because he was a clan leader that had, the Habagetter clan had kind of taken over the town. They were taking the food, any of the aid that we were giving to Somalia, also weapons, and they're running drugs. Khat is a big drug over there. And he needed to be eliminated so that we could get peace back in that town. So we were actually there to help some of the lesser tribes or the lesser clans, such as her clan, which, you know, obviously they were already gone. But yeah, we were there to try to do the right thing. And you know, the other thing is, we didn't say, hey, let's pick out Somalia as a great place to go hang out. The president at the time, President Clinton, said, this is where we're going, this is what the mission is, and our commander said, roger that, we can do it, and we all had signed on the line. That's why we serve, and you can make a difference when you go to those countries.
Does it strike you as odd that, and I don't want to pick on Ilhan Omar, but she's a member of Congress, and so her statements get a lot of attention. Here's someone who was brought to the United States at public expense simply because we're a kind country that accepts a lot of refugees. And rather than being grateful for that, she spent the rest of her life attacking this country. Why?
Well, as they would say down here in Tennessee, bless her heart. I mean, we want her to understand that she's living large now because of her family being able to escape the atrocities of Mogadishu. And yeah, it's very disturbing. We watched our friends get drugged through the streets by the people that she says are her people. And we got to watch that on TV once we'd exfilled from the crash site that I was at, and we got back to our hangar. That's what we got to watch. So, yeah, we take it personal when you attack us like that. Once again, it's not surprising to hear that. There's been kind of a long list of things she said that I don't know if she meant them or not, but she continues to say them. So, yeah, I feel bad for her.
Yeah, I do too. What about the families of the Americans who were killed there? I mean, what do you think they think of this?
I haven't talked to any of the families, but that doesn't take her saying something to remind them of what they deal with every day.
Right.
Whenever they go to a baseball game and they hear the national anthem and they look at the flag, that dad's not there with his kids.
Yeah.
That's a story that not just from Somalia, but all the other conflicts that I've been in and that I haven't been in. That's the story of the soldier. So that's what we deal with on a daily basis. And really, you know, we just want people to help us out when we get back, which is we need a mission. We need, you know, guys to get help if they have drug or alcohol issues, which sometimes can be prevalent in the military if guys are suffering with injuries that they try to continue to fight with. So we try to get them the help that we can. That's what we want to do. And yeah, it's the soldier story from the last 10,000 years.
Kind of the last thing you need is a lecture from people like her. Sergeant Major, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you again. God bless America.
This event is for people that want to...
Got some more breaking news about that evil Democrat Ilhan Omar. Well, now she's just proved that she's a terrorist with what she just called on Congress to do. Yes, how do you attack a nation from within? How? Well, you get elected to public office and then work to abolish the very agency that's tasked with defending it. Joseph Wolfson for Fox News reports that Representative Ilhan Omar, the Democrat from Minnesota, continues her streak of controversial tweets, this time taking aim at the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the freshman congresswoman refers to President Trump as Individual One in the tweet and insists that he doesn't have public support to ram his hateful wall through Congress. Of course, she would love to see people from the Middle East running across the Mexican border to join her up in Minnesota and, you know, probably start a terrorist cell. Now, we have the tweet here. Where's that tweet? When Democrats stood our ground last month, we proved that Individual One does not have the public support to ram his hateful wall through Congress. Let's stand firm. Not $1 for DHS. That's what she said. Not $1 for DHS.
In the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and
Yeah,
he was
he's
sort
in
of
command
like,
here.
Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah.
He's an
and it
expert.
was-
Not $1 for DHS. Watch this.
The freshman congresswoman from Minnesota is under fire after a tweet called to defund the Department of Homeland Security. Representative Ilhan Omar tweeted, quote, "This is an outrage. I'm hearing from TSA workers back in Minnesota who still haven't received back pay after the shutdown. All workers affected by the shutdown, including contractors, deserve back pay."
Okay, well, that sounds reasonable. But an hour later, she tweeted, "When Democrats stood our ground last month, we proved that individual number one," she was taking a shot at the president, "does not have the public support to ram his hateful wall through Congress. Let's stand firm," she said, "not $1 for DHS." Here to react, former U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Transportation, Oliver McGee. Good morning, Oliver.
Morning, Oliver.
So, good morning, Ed and Jedediah. She doesn't seem to understand that if you want to get back pay and you want to defend the country, these are the same people who work for the DHS. So how are you going to defund the Department of Homeland Security?
Well, I always say I like my borders like my sodas with lots of ice with a little bit of Homeland Security on top. This is the third largest agency in the government, Ed. It is $45 billion, and it's a consolidation merger of 22 federal agencies after 9/11. This agency is a huge, huge part of the federal government, and Representative Omar is thinking about cutting it. That's crazy. This thing includes the Secret Service, it includes TSA, it includes ICE, it includes border control. But more importantly, it's about terrorism mitigation. It's about critical infrastructure in cyberspace. Even as she's tweeting on her iPhone, this agency protects the use of her iPhone and makes sure it's safe and secure. But most of all, it's about nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons of mass destruction control. Basically, tearing down the Homeland Security is basically taking down the USS Enterprise.
It's pretty remarkable.
And then she's taking all shields down.
Yeah, and
All shields down. All shields down. She's calling to disarm the entire nation, making us vulnerable to attack. The woman is a traitor and should be arrested immediately for giving aid and comfort to the enemy. Now, she later sought to clarify her tweet, saying that writing not $1 for DHS actually meant not $1 more. Oh, you forgot. You forgot that most critical word. You know, you're a congresswoman now. Words matter. Okay? So get it right. But we know what your true intentions are. We know you're anti-Semitic. We know you hate the Jews. We know you hate the nation of Israel. We know you're a terrorist. This tells us all right there. You want to defund DHS so all your friends can come rushing across the border. Yeah. You don't care about this country. You don't care about this country one bit. You're going to work from within to destroy it. Yeah. You have no allegiance to this nation at all. None. Now, here's something maybe you don't know. If she wasn't arrested before, if she wasn't arrested, this is not the first time. Okay, she was arrested in 2013 after refusing to comply with police orders to vacate a location she was not authorized to be in while the Somali president was staying at the Hotel Ivy in Minneapolis. Police felt that she was such a threat, they held her in lockup for a simple trespassing citation, which is highly unusual for such a violation. Perhaps law enforcement feared that she would assassinate the Somali president? Perhaps. But this wouldn't be her first arrest if she's arrested for treason, which I think is absolutely appropriate about now.
We will turn to Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar's story. She says she's received daily death threats against her life since the president on Friday tweeted about a speech she gave last month. In that tweet, the president wrote, "We will never forget," over a clip of Omar speaking to the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. There, she described the events of 9/11, saying, quote, "Some people did something." The clip posted by the president edited parts of the speech to include footage of the Twin Tower attacks. Now, since that tweet, Omar has accused the president of encouraging right-wing extremism. It's a claim the White House has quickly denied. Joining us to discuss, we have a live panel today, conservative commentator Steve Malzberg and Code Pink co-founder Medea Benjamin. Folks, thanks for being with us today. So President Trump is currently en route to Minnesota to Ilhan Omar's turf. Representative Omar says she's now getting more death threats than ever before following the president's tweets about her. Steve, I'll start with you. Is it right for the president to be adding fuel to this fire?
Well, absolutely. It's right for him to point out what she said and show how outrageous it was what she said, to dismiss 9/11 and the Islamist terrorists who committed that act as somebody who did something. We should point out, first of all, that she does get death threats. She has gotten death threats way before this ever happened. Her office has said that. What the president is doing and what the New York Post did and what people all over the country are doing are expressing outrage at this woman, this anti-Semite, who now is as obviously a CARE supporter. CARE, an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation terror trial. She was talking to CARE. She didn't even know when CARE was founded, and that was the whole point of her bringing up 9/11. Nobody cares when Donald Trump is called every name in the book. To say that she's a woman of color, you can't talk about her, and to make believe she didn't bring this on herself is disingenuous.
A lot of feelings there. I can hear out of Steve, who is a New Yorker. Medea, what's your take on this?
I think it's terrible the way that she is being demonized. She is not an anti-Semite. She is somebody who, of course, thinks that what happened on 9/11 was a horrific tragedy. I think the president is using her to drum up her base and drum up hatred and division in this country. She was taken out of context. She said that a small group of Muslims did a terrible act on 9/11, and then since then the entire Muslim community has been tarred with the same brush. I think it's very, very clear what she was saying, and it's very, very clear how this is being used to justify Islamophobia that your guest is part of.
Now, perhaps, folks, this was maybe a verbal misstep on her behalf. Maybe it's a gaffe for her to characterize 9/11 as some people doing something. Perhaps she should have condemned it more strongly, maybe calling it an act of terror. But it is what it is. Does any public figure who may perhaps have just misspoke really deserve this sort of treatment? I mean, is this where we're at in the arena of public discourse?
Well, Manila, she didn't say I misspoke. Have you heard her say I misspoke? If she said she misspoke, then you could apologize to her. And how dare your guest call me an Islamophobe? I wonder if your guest is ever concerned when people say the MAGA hat that kids and people wear is the new KKK hood. Does your guest have any consideration or concern about that? Or that our president is a Nazi? He hates blacks. He hates Jews. You think that contributes to the safety or the lack of his safety? Does your guest care about that? I'd like to know from her, since she called me an Islamophobe.
Medea, I'll let you respond.
Well, I think that you are pushing the same kind of division that the president is. There is no doubt in my mind that the Congresswoman is not anti-Semitic, that the Congresswoman is not trying to dismiss what happened on 9/11. She has nothing to apologize for. She was right. A small group of people, someone did something very terrible on 9/11, and the entire community is having to pay for it. That is the point, and you are just confirming her point.
Now, folks,
she didn't even say it was something terrible. She didn't say it was something terrible.
Oh, come on. Of course that she knows it's something terrible. Look, she is as American as the rest of us. She is somebody who absolutely condemns any act of terrorism wherever it comes from.
What are you, her spokesperson? You're her spokesperson? She can't say what you're saying? You have to say it for her? This woman has a pattern, and she's loving every minute of it. But I got to tell you, she's God's gift to Donald Trump and the Republicans in 2020. You have had several of the major Democratic candidates, presidential candidates, over the weekend and today support her. Nancy Pelosi supported her in what she said at that CARE function. This is fantastic news for Trump and the Republicans because the American public thinks what she said is outrageous. So she's the gift that keeps on giving.
In the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and you know.
Yeah, he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, you know, Hezbollah.
He's an expert.
I remember when I was in college, I took a terrorism class, and
is there a such thing?
Yeah, there was.
So you go. There is a lab for that.
There was a class that you.
Do you go to a lab?
No,
go out a field trip.
We learned the ideology of.
I'm glad you do that.
And so it was the thing that was interesting in the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up, and you know.
Yeah, he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, you know, Hezbollah.
He's an expert.
And it was, you know,
what's his name? What to put his name on
Where
Where does he live?
Saying his name.
Yeah.
You probably get to see him on CNN.
Well, yeah, of course. I love those guys.
But you know, but it is that you don't say America with an intensity. You don't say England with an intensity. You know, you don't say the army with an intensity.
Qaeda.
But you say these names because you want that word to carry weight. You want it to leave something with
it has a cultural meaning, not just political
exactly
meaning.
So it's said with a deeper voice. So
you tweeted, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. How do you put that into context now, and what do you say to American Jews?
What is really important to me is that people recognize that there is a difference between criticizing a military action by a government that has exercised really oppressive policies.
Why the disdain for the government of the country that saved you and your family after you lived in a tent in Kenya for 4 years? We all know how it starts. It starts that way. Hate is hate. Hate leads to violence, and violence leads to retaliation, which then leads to unrest and worse. Yes, Nancy, it's all about hating Israel to promote the cause of Palestine. So let me get this straight. She and her family flee war-torn Somalia, where 500,000 are killed during a civil war, then sent to a refugee camp in Kenya for 4 years. They are then resettled by our government in Virginia to enjoy the cornucopia of rights, privileges, and benefits the United States offers. The she is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who represents Minnesota's 5th Congressional District in Congress only about 2 months. But she's gotten attention far beyond Washington for her anti-Semitism. But as early as 2012, she tweeted, quote, Israel has hypnotized the world. May Allah awaken the people and help them see the evil doings of Israel. Now, after an uproar in her home state, she apologized, pledging to learn more about anti-Semitism. Apparently, she did not. Once in Congress, she continued with her hate-filled anti-Semitic, anti-Israel tropes. First, in defending the BDS, or Boycott, Divest, and Sanction movement, calling for the boycott of events in Israel, and even for the eradication of Israel because of their so-called oppression of Palestine. Shortly thereafter, she tweets, it's all about the Benjamins, baby. The Benjamins, of course, a clear reference to the $100 bill. Shortly after that, she continues her hate-filled rants, accusing another Democrat congresswoman of having a dual loyalty, pledging allegiance to Israel. She is clever, though, responding with, quote, "I am told I am anti-American if I am not pro-Israel," close quote. The House knew it had to take action. And after a week of chaos on the part of House members trying to figure out if Omar should be reprimanded, identified by name, as well as removed from the powerful Foreign Relations Committee, Speaker Pelosi comes out with a watered-down, dumb, disappointing resolution that neither condemns Omar nor mentions her name. A simple, "we shouldn't hate each other."
I don't think our colleague is anti-Semitic. I think she has a different experience in the use of words, doesn't understand that some of them are fraught with meaning that she didn't realize.
Nancy, she speaks perfect English. She graduated from a college in the United States. You say she doesn't understand the words? Are you saying she's stupid? That she doesn't understand? Then what the hell is she doing on the prestigious Foreign Relations Committee? She speaks fluently, using tropes which are figurative and metaphorical, understanding that those words create powerful images and verbal ironies. She is far from stupid. Her comments only critical of Jews and Israel, not Italy, not Morocco, not North Korea, Israel. Now, the fact that you didn't have the backbone, grit, or gumption to draft a resolution that included her name tells me you're the stupid one. And if you don't understand, let me explain. Omar got you and all your pals to draft a watered-down resolution with a message we all learned in first grade. Don't hate anybody. Really? That took you bozos a week in the House? She then goes on to accuse respected members of Congress who support Israel, our strongest ally in the Middle East, of dual loyalty. What she's doing, Nancy, is starting a movement to shut down pro-Israel speech, making it politically incorrect. So when she comes up with her pro-Palestinian agenda, the pro-Israels are reticent to speak because she's already proven that the Dems will not punish her. And talk about chutzpah, she takes a victory lap and in an unrepentant and unchastised tweet takes credit by saying, quote, "Our nation is having a difficult conversation, but we believe this is great progress." But she continues her disdain and contempt for Israel, America's chief ally, ignoring how Israel has assisted us advancing our interests in the Middle East, preventing victories by radical nationalist movements, as well as assisting us in intelligence gathering. She then goes on to slam Barack Obama, saying he's just another pretty face who got away with murder, caging kids and droning people in the Middle East. But she adds he is a bit more polished. My question, why the disdain for the government of the country that saved you and your family after you lived in a tent in Kenya for 4 years? Why the scorn? And as the Democrats scrambled to forgive, rationalize, and give a pass to a freshman in Congress, the joke is on you, Nancy. You've appeased rising anti-Semitism inside the Democrat Party.